Sid Colson and Sophie Cunningham join Caitlin Clark on the injury list, which makes them eligible now for a hardship contract depending on how long they're out. So who should the Indiana Fever bring over? So, yeah, yesterday was hard for a lot of Indiana Fever fans. I think it was a glaring, at least for me, I was thinking, were we all just hoodwinked at what this roster was built to be? Because we were sold, and it actually very, very much seemed like the veteran presence was something that was lacking, especially in last year's playoffs. And they did get a lot of players that had really good stats. Natasha Howard, I was always on the fence about, but I was willing to give a chance. And I don't necessarily think it's that Natasha Howard is bad or that Dewana Bonner is bad. I think that fitting into this read and react, fast paced, move in transition system is kind of hard for both players. But first, let's talk about the injuries, because there are things that the Indiana Fever can do, because they are now eligible to sign another player, maybe even two, to a hardship contract. A WNBA hardship contract is a short-term replacement deal signed by a team when they faced roster shortages due to injury. And according to Google, it says teams can be eligible for hardship contract if they have two players out for at least 3 weeks, or if they have fewer than 10 players, according to her hoop stats. Now, generally, these are 7-day hardship contracts, so it's not like we're looking to change the landscape of the Indiana Fever roster as it currently sits. I think it's more of getting someone in right now for some temporary help. And it seemed as if the Indiana Fever were just barely above water with Caitlin Clark out already, as Sydney Colson was the backup point guard. I think that it's been hard for Sid Colson to really rise to that occasion. She's never been a player that went in for many minutes previously. She's she was, I think, originally signed to come in for 2, 5, 8 minutes even a game in very specific moments to maintain reads for the Indiana Fever so that the offense doesn't exactly fall apart when Caitlin Clark goes out for a rest. Not a high impact player, more of a glue bench player. And in last night's game, JC Sheldon dove for the ball when Sid Colson kind of fumbled it out of her hands. And honestly, this move was not very safe. I think JC Sheldon needs a little bit of a talking to, because diving towards a player's legs, towards a player's feet, or anything like that is the biggest faux pas in basketball. That's why they're very strict on landing space calls, even though Caitlin Clark doesn't get as many as she probably should. But it's the reason that the landing space calls exist, because a basketball player's feet and basketball players' legs are of the utmost importance to their success. And this move right here is not a good move by JC Sheldon. It really just shows that the dive that she took towards Sid Colson's legs was not safe. And we don't have an update on the status of Sid Colson's injury, but it looks like it could potentially be an Achilles or an ACL injury, and hoping that it's not. We still haven't had an update yet, but that's the type of thing we're dealing with here. And as if that wasn't hard enough, Sophie Cunningham, who is not a primary ball handler, but was showing glimpses of being able to take over for moments in that spot in the preseason game, was kind of relegated to the backup point guard. So when Sid Colson went out, Sophie Cunningham had stepped in the position. I sort of tend to think that Sophie Cunningham's dribbles a little high for a point guard, but I did see glimpses of her being able to handle that in the preseason game. But then when I saw it again, when she came back with her first ankle injury, I didn't see that same production. And it does take time, and these things aren't flip overnight, everything's great, but it just kind of started highlighting the glaring void that the Indiana roster construction has. And that's a very important position for a team that moves like this. And Sophie Cunningham did, I don't know if she re-rolled her ankle, but later on in the game, Sophie Cunningham's ankle does kind of like tweak and it doesn't look good. Especially because it looks to be that she re-injured the injury that she so recently had. So Sophie Cunningham went out, also injured in the same game. The Indiana Fever backcourt is now looking dangerously thin, so they have to do something about it. So I predict that Amber Cox, that Kelly Krauskopf, and that Coach White and the rest of the coaching staff are huddled together probably this very moment, talking about who they might be able to pick up and just to get through this next week on a hardship contract. But I should caveat that with saying that we don't know the status of Sid Colson and we don't know the status of Sophie Cunningham. So it's still kind of up in the air. But these are things that you do want to plan for in case, the worst happens. Because as we're seeing now, like, they did not plan for the worst happening in Caitlin Clark going out. And it was hard to plan for something like that because Caitlin Clark has not been out since high school. So I think a lot of lessons have been learned recently, and they better be in there talking about this at this point. Now, I've seen a lot of people throw around Jaylen Brown, and I've always been against that because Jaylen Brown was a player who has been experiencing difficulties just staying in the WNBA as is. And yes, it's true that she does understand, she went through training camp, so she knows like what they're trying to do, but training camp isn't very long. And I mean, they need somebody who can be a little bit of a playmaker, possibly. They can't just like throw anybody in there. Now, if they do look to actually supplement this lack of point guard with another true point guard, their options are Aari McDonald, who was cut from the Los Angeles Sparks. Kelsey Plum went over there. They actually, Odyssey Sims was signed to a hardship contract with the Los Angeles Sparks last season. She had been bouncing around on hardship contracts. She was with the Wings previously. Then she went over to the Sparks, and she proved that she did a pretty good job with the Sparks. So the Sparks ended up keeping her and signing her and cutting Aari McDonald after they signed Kelsey Plum. Now, Aari McDonald isn't the biggest, but which you can get away with at the point guard position. That would make their backcourt kind of small with Aari McDonald and Kelsey Mitchell. But Aari McDonald has playmaking abilities, and I have seen her have some really great games with the Sparks, at least last season. So she's no slouch, but she's also not, up to the potential that I know that the Indiana Fever have built themselves wanting to be. The Indiana Fever have made it no secret that they want to be a contending team, but we have to remember that this is a 1-week hardship contract. Serena Sundell's name has been thrown out, and Serena Sundell was just recently drafted in the 2025 WNBA draft. She did end up getting cut, but a lot of people are big fans of Serena Sundell, but I would be hesitant because she is a rookie and the point guard position is it's a tough role to fill. I could see Serena Sundell being developed on a team, but to just jump in and be a point guard for a team immediately is pretty hard. I mean, but right now, like, the Indiana Fever are in like dire straits. I mean, even Steph White in the postgame interview last night had mentioned that they are right now in a time of adversity. And there's a lot of people saying this one too. A lot of people want the Indiana Fever to bring Grace Berger back, which is so ironic. I mean, she could definitely, come in for a week or so, but like it would, how funny would that be? She was drafted to the Indiana Fever, not draft. Wait, she was on the Indiana Fever. Christy Sides gave her like no playing time. She was let go from the Indiana Fever, then picked up by the Minnesota Lynx, and then waived by the Minnesota Lynx. And the Minnesota Lynx are a team that do develop their players. So for the Minnesota Lynx to cut her says that she's not like necessarily like up to that championship caliber. But again, we're talking about dire straits here. This is just my opinion. It may not be the most popular opinion, but I see Aari McDonald as kind of the best option for what is available out there right now. At least out of the three aforementioned, Aari McDonald is the only one that has proven and shown that she can put up the points in games up against professional athletes, like as opposed to a Grace Berger where there's a lot of potential for that to happen, but it hasn't really been shown on the court just yet. And again, this is a very short contract, so somebody with that experience would probably like bode better than somebody who is working through to get to that level. I mean, you can let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know there's going to be a lot of backing for Grace Berger, and I am here for that too. I think that in this particular situation, for me and the way that I see things, a little bit of Aries experience could help in this short period of time. But what do you guys think? What are your feelings on the Indiana Fever? What are your feelings about who they should bring over to fill this void? And especially if Sophie Cunningham and Sid Colson are out for an extended period of time, because they need to do something. And it is still a short period of time. Caitlin Clark is potentially going to be out for another week and a half at minimum, but it could be longer. I do not want Caitlin Clark coming back before she is fully healed, because honestly, giving her one more week of healing, or two even, is like way better in the long run, because you don't want her re-aggravating her injury, which very often happens with injuries. They can get re-aggravated very easily, as shown with Sophie Cunningham. So a healthy Caitlin Clark for however long it takes is better in the long run. That goes for anybody with injury. But let me know what you guys think. Who should they bring over on this hardship contract?